All right, thank you, everybody. So to kick us off at this event, earlier in the week, we started our conversation with Dr. Stuart Hart and Mark Jesser from Integra. We asked a question, are we entering or are we in the decade of the brain? And I think today you're going to hear some perspectives, some innovation, and some real impact that kind of soundly cements the fact that we might be in that decade or we might be entering that decade. Before we get going, I'd like to first have the panelists introduce themselves because we have an incredibly esteemed group of accomplished professionals, innovators, neurosurgeons, and I'd like to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves one by one, starting with Coach Singletary on my left.
Thank you very much. Just really excited to be here, and Mike Singletary, former football player, Chicago Bear, and entrepreneur, speaker, and really love the medical side of life right now.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Henry. I'm Hunt Batjer. I'm a cerebrovascular neurosurgeon.
I got it this year, right?
I've been called other things in the past. And I have a strong affiliation to the Mayo Clinic, University of Texas Southwestern, and University of Texas at Tyler. And this is a seminar about the underserved and to link head injury with stroke. Stroke is easy, and I also love the athletic part. I love Mike, and I was honored to be, for 8 years, the NFL head, neck, and spine co-chair as we put together a new paradigm to try to combat lifelong injuries in athletes. And then I'm even more empathetic in that I've had a fall of my own and a spinal cord injury that unfortunately has been a challenge for the last several years. But I'm honored to be here with you today.
I'm Geoff Klass. I'm the CEO at Sense Diagnostics, and we've developed technology that detects, measures, monitors stroke and traumatic brain injury patients, because we know if they're going to get a chance, that time matters. It can't be an hour to treatment. It has to be measured in minutes and seconds. So it's very applicable to the discussion that we're going to have here today, and I'm really honored to be here with all of you, and thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm Bendok I'm a vascular neurosurgeon at Mayo Clinic, and I'm interested in telerobotics, new technology to improve outcomes for neurovascular and patients with cranial neurosurgical diseases, artificial intelligence, and ways to improve how we practice medicine.
Fantastic, thank you. So let's start in the world of athletics as a way to kind of contextualize this conversation when we talk about stroke, traumatic injury, and injuries to the brain. Coach Singletary, I'm sure as a legend of the game, a coach, a player, and moreover than that, a father and a family member, many people approach you and ask questions like, should I allow my child to play this game, given the work that we've seen, the research that's come out, and a lot of what's been in the media around head injuries in football. How do you respond to a question like that from a parent asking, should their child be able to play this game?
Well, I think when I retired from the game, never really thinking about traumatic brain injury and concussion and CTI, all those things never really occurred to me until after I retired. And I started hearing about traumatic brain injury and things like that, and I just began to do a lot of research and study. Obviously, it was of concern to me. And when I began to look at young people, kids playing the game and starting tackle football at 6 years old, and I really began to research and ask people, medical doctors, about that issue. Should I let my kids play? We have a couple of sons, and one of them is here today, and I wanted to make sure that I was doing the right thing. And so the consensus was, let your kid grow until maybe around 12 years old. And by that time, their physiological structure, their brain and ligaments and bones have basically grown and now you can allow them the opportunity to play the game. And that's what we did. We waited till our kids were 12 years old, or our sons were 12 years old before we let them play contact sports. And because we didn't want them to have premature injuries that their bone structures were going to have a difficult time continuing to grow. And so that was very important for us.
Can I ask you a follow-up question, Mike? You're at a meeting, a community meeting, and a woman comes to the microphone, and she's asking you a question about her son, and she lives in an affluent suburb in North Dallas. And she said, Mr. Singletary, my son's a ninth grader, and he really wants to play football. And I'm going to go see the coach. What should I ask the coach? What's important to know?
Wow. These days, I think it's really important when you talk to a coach, particularly that age, young football players, does that coach really care about the health of the kids? And before my son or whomever, I'm always looking at how would I answer that question if it were my son. And if I'm talking to a coach, they say, hey, you know, we're about winning. We're of a winning tradition here. We want to go out, and that's what we're going to do. That's what we're here for. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? This is not the coach for my kid. I really believe that in America, we've gotten away from what's really important as a coach for young kids. I think for young kids, we need to allow our kids to go from one level to the next healthy. We need to make sure that they're healthy first. We need to make sure that they love the game, they're positive. We're teaching them about the game. It's not so much about winning. We'd like to win, but that shouldn't be the driving force. As they get older and, you know, have a chance to get a scholarship, have a chance to make money, now we should focus more on winning. But when the kids are young, man, let them grow, let them have fun, teach them how to play the game, and then hopefully later on to have a chance to win a game.
And as we talk about, you know, what that parent might want to learn from that coach, as Dr. Batjer said, you know, maybe you're talking to somebody in a community like Dallas, how might the perspective change, or what kind of data exists that shows disparities in what you might hear from that coach if, say, the child or the child's school, they're playing in a suburb 30 miles east of Tyler, Texas, for example?
Want me to answer that?
You can give it a shot.
I thought Dr. Batjer was going to answer that. All right. You know, I think that, first of all, the question lends itself to, when I think of myself playing football, the sandlot game. Man, I loved sandlot football. I love sports where there were no referees, there were no parents at the game, there were no fans at the game. Boo! The kids are 9 years old, man. Let the kids, you know, have a chance to learn how to play the game. And so I just think that these days, what we know now about the game is so important to have someone, a trainer, someone who has some kind of health background in case there is an injury on the field, in case there is a head injury of any sort, someone that is there. And in a likelihood in an area where there's an affluent area, middle class, what have you, they're more likely to have someone there that can understand and can detect a concussion. Whereas kind of where I grew up, you're just out there with the kids. And if a kid has a concussion, you go on the sideline, can you see this? Can you see that? Okay, good, let's go back in the game. Big difference. So that really is the biggest difference in the game, coming from an affluent area, middle class area, basic, versus a poor area.
And we'll use that as a nice launch pad to talk about kind of access and global disparities. But one last point kind of on this perspective, Dr. Batjer, when we had talked about bringing this conversation to the event, one thing that you made sure that we knew is that Coach Singletary thinks very differently than a lot of the other contemporaries in this field. And I want you to add a little bit of perspective to that for the audience. What did you see kind of working with the league, and what is so different about his perspective compared to the others that you interact with?
It is night and day. When I first, early in my experience with Mike, he came to me. We were at a Hall of Fame event where he was hosting a medical meeting, and one of the things that was distressing him was that some of his idols from childhood were coming up to him at the Hall of Fame events and not able to, they were asking him the same question over and over, and then they would have trouble finding their chair for dinner. And that was really distressing to him. And I've noticed that in the way he reacts to parents, to kids, to the whole concept of what an athletic leader needs to be focused on, and that's you. That is who you are, and you can't help it. And God bless you for it. But that's not the rule. And I think that's important for everybody to remember that is not the rule. And it's more like the coach he described. We're here to win. Any questions? So that's what I encountered when I started out with the league. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go over to Geoff and Dr. Bendok as we start to kind of look at the technology and the solutions in this space. Geoff, can you get us current on Sense Neuro-Diagnostics, what's happening here? And then Dr. Bendok, a little bit of the work that you're exploring, the technologies that you're looking at from the Mayo Clinic side.
Sure. At Sense, we've been working hard to get ourselves to market, and we will be clearing the FDA this year and going commercial sometime early next year. But the technology we're bringing, to the field is so needed because patients, people that suffer a TBI or suffer a stroke, you have to measure the time to treatment in a matter of minutes. It can't be in a matter of hours. So where you live shouldn't have any impedance on your access to the right kind of treatment. And that's what we want to bring to the market. We were bringing them technology that when an ambulance comes up in, the rural part of Texas, that patient is going to get detected for exactly what's going on. So they get right to the right facility to treat them as quickly as possible. But the same is in the inner city. They should have access to the exact same treatment that everybody else does. But an ambulance comes up, they pick people up, and they just bring them to the nearest hospital. And these hospitals aren't really equipped to handle the condition these people have. So, some of you may have heard about mobile stroke units, and they're around in a lot of the urban centers, and they're great, nothing wrong with them. They cost $1 million, and they cost $2 million a year to outfit them and operate them. The device that we have, which is going to really detect stroke by subtype and bleeding, the headset only costs $200. So for $2 million, you can really buy a lot of $200 headsets. And why should you not be able to turn every ambulance into a stroke unit by using such technology? Because for us, it's all about getting this patient from where they are into the hands of Dr. Bendok and the great things that they can do.
Thank you. Henry and I were reflecting earlier this morning about how we're now in the decade of the brain. And I would take it a step further in that we're in the decade of cognition, because humanity is moving away. Humanity made its living since forever, in manual labor. That's how most human beings earn their keep. Going forward, robotics, AI, that's all going away. And so we need to reinvent ourselves as a species. So when we look at outcomes in the hospital, back in the 50s and 60s, if our predecessors had somebody walking and talking, that was good enough. They could move their arms, legs, they could say some words, that's good enough. That's not good enough anymore. We've got to get people back to being able to use the mind part of the brain, not just the arm and leg movement, not just speech. So our bar has gone way up. So what does that mean? We have 12 million strokes worldwide per year, at least. That's a conservative estimate. We're not really measuring in Africa, so we're probably missing several million. Of those, 10%, or 1 to 2 million, involve occlusion of a major brain artery, just like you do in the heart. So a clot travels up, lodges in a brain vessel, and you are out of luck. You are not going to go back to a cognitive job after that. You'll probably be in a nursing home you're probably going to pass away. But if you can get to a hospital within an hour, so if you happen to live by the Mayo Clinic or Northwestern or one of these, or UT Southwestern, and you're close and you get to the right team, you get that clot removed now with the beautiful technology. Many companies in the room here are involved in this. Patients can wake up and start moving again, and you preserve their cognition. The brain is about 100 billion neurons, a trillion connections, and you're losing several million neurons a minute. So your operating system is being degraded from Windows 12, Windows 11, Windows 10, back down to, Windows 95. And so...
down to Henry.
And so 1/3 of them, so let's forget Africa for a moment, where you basically have nothing in terms of resources and manpower, human power. United States, first world country, 100 million America, 1/3 of the population cannot access a stroke center within 60 minutes. That means they're going to have a bad outcome. So when I'm on call at Mayo Clinic in Arizona, if I get called, an ambulance is coming from downtown Scottsdale, they're going to do well. I get a call, they're up in the Flagstaff, the mountains of Arizona. We're going to go through the motions. You still got to treat them. You got to cross the T's and dot the I's. They are not going to do well. So we've been involved, Dr. Batjer and I and others on this panel, been involved with technologies, with NeuroSense, to try to make that decision. Because currently today in the United States, your ambulance, your wonderful EMS team, they're doing wonderful work, are obliged by law to go to the closest hospital, but that may not be the right hospital. So you wind up at the wrong hospital, and it's game over. Because by the time you transfer to Mayo Clinic, it's 4 or 5 hours, and we're not going to be able to help in most cases. The window starts to close rapidly. You're losing millions of neurons a minute. And so now, with better devices and ambulances to tell us what kind of care does this patient need, maybe using AI to make smart decisions on the fly, telemedicine in the ambulance. And if that can't happen, maybe we extend our capabilities across Arizona, across the country, maybe even to other countries with telerobotics. And we've been involved with some really cool research. This is very recent, where we can now navigate these devices into the brain. And we did the longest distance experiment in December, and about a month ago, we navigated wires and catheters from Scottsdale all the way to Zurich. And we were able, in 20 models, 20 simulations, extract clot. And to me, it was almost faster than being in person. And as I tried the Apple immersive heads-up display a couple weeks ago, there's going to be very little distinction very soon. You all know this, between reality and remote presence. And I think I'm very excited about what I've seen, what our lab has been involved with, what I've been working with Dr. Batjer on. And I think that for the first time in human history, since Hippocrates, we have not been able to scale healthcare. It's still a history and physical. Patient has to wind up to you by chance, if they're lucky. So people sometimes retire in these remote areas. I always tell people, you got to retire near a good hospital. You can't be retiring. And so for the first time in human history, due to AI and robotics, we're going to be able to scale healthcare, scale neurosurgery. And I'll end with this comment that you'd be surprised that 70% of my time is spent doing things that you didn't need 17 years of education to do. Charting, documenting, seeing patients who don't really, I'm happy to see them. I'm cordial and I'm delighted to see everyone, but they probably didn't need to be in my clinic. So what if we could, with AI and robotics, have me see the right patient at the right time, and now I've got half my week available to do telemedicine, telerobotics, to be able to scale our capabilities to, we'll get to Africa for sure, but what about rural America, where the outcomes are pretty much on par with developing countries in terms of lack of access to, cutting-edge healthcare. So thank you for allowing me the comments.
Just one comment, Bernard. For us, a major event occurred in 2015, and that is 4 randomized trials showed that endovascular interventions, surgical interventions, after an immediate stroke made a big difference in outcome. And what we know now is that the data over the next 4 years after that seminal event showed that in the United States, that impact has been very, very modest. And in fact, in roughly a third of the areas of a map of the United States, the incidence of either thrombolysis or thrombectomy that Bernard was referring to is either the same or worse than it was before. And that means one of two things need to happen. We need to fundamentally reorganize the way our health system works in the accreditation of stroke centers. Or if we don't think we can move the Rock of Gibraltar in 3 years, new technologies, and that's what this work, say the nanoflex activities with the robotic remote treatment that could be done on the space station with a patient on the space station, the surgeon in Phoenix. That's not a problem. And with this technology that Geoff referred to, you've got a monitor that could be put on at the moment of pickup and that would go with the patient throughout their critical care, regardless of the country they lived in. And I just think this is really an amazing opportunity that the new technology that we have now that is ready in a shocking period of time is going to be a fundamental one affecting the world of the underserved.
I think it's important to note that the cost of mistreatment of stroke and traumatic brain injury, the poor outcomes, it has an economic impact on the U.S. healthcare system of over $300 billion a year. That's a tremendous number. And the population is aging. So the incidence of stroke and traumatic brain injury is only going to keep going up. So we've got to absolutely do something to improve these outcomes. So speed is the answer. We're speaking with people in Australia. They have a feeling that if they don't fix the problem now, that it could in effect bankrupt the country, in the near future. So, it's a problem in the US, it's a problem in, Australia, but Canada, India, the continent of Africa, they're no different than each other. You have technology in urban centers, but you have a massive landmass that has absolutely nothing to treat these people with, to diagnose them, to understand who needs to get flown in, who needs to stay home, and we have a big challenge here, and we have to get at it and address it now because really speed is of the essence, not only for the patient, but also for what the cost this is going to have on our, on our income, our systems.
So, Dr. Batjer, I know I'm working with the Windows 95 Microsoft Clippy operating system here, but from what you guys are describing to me, it sounds like you're putting together a really rich continuum of technologies and of care here in the U.S. and abroad. As we talk about AI, robotics, digital, some of these advanced technologies, I think a lot of us often hear kind of questions around the adoption of, what will clinicians adopt here in the U.S. and what may fit into the existing infrastructures and business models. And I'm curious I'll go to you first, and I know a return joke is definitely coming, and then we'll go to Dr. Bendok. But tell me kind of how you see your colleagues responding to this and how, some commentary maybe on how the global clinician audience may think differently than the clinicians that are, blessed to work at Mayo and UT and in some of these more well-resourced, high-infrastructure areas.
Don't hurt me now. It's easy to be a naysayer because there are regulatory issues. There's Good Samaritan laws. If somebody's going to put a catheter in an artery in a rural area in America or in Nigeria or in Afghanistan, for example, would they be protected under if an inadvertent event happens or the patient passes away? Are they liable? We've got to get that sorted out. COVID helped us a lot in telehealth because telehealth offers us the opportunity that Dr. Bendok, when he's doing a procedure on a phantom patient in Zurich, Switzerland, he's in the room. He's watching every bit and talking to the physician or the technician in that room in Zurich, in the same way that we did with COVID when patients from all over the country were being seen remotely. And that's something that could actually work in Mike's situation for the child in an underserved area where an athletic trainer could be, by telehealth, seeing the game, interfacing with the child, and monitoring and taking care of him or her during that injury recovery. So we have the technology to cope with those matters that you appropriately bring up.
Yeah, I have a colleague in Phoenix who spends part of her time in Africa helping her. She grew up there and she became a neurosurgeon, and she made a comment that I think has stuck with, was very insightful, in that here in the U.S. we're always trying to debate, are these technologies actually dangerous? Are they good for us? What will it do to my job? So if you're a radiologist, the last thing you want to hear is that there's a new paper showing that AI can read a scan better. On the other hand, in some of those countries, what they'll tell you is we can't wait, because we know we can. Africa right now, to even meet their minimum needs in neurosurgery, for example, they need another 9,000 neurosurgeons. That's not happening anytime soon. And that's maybe just to cover basic trauma, so you're not even counting all the things that actually need attention. So in countries with limited resources, and again, we can go to rural America as another area of need, you need the technology. You're never going to be able to have comprehensive stroke centers at every of the 5,000 hospitals in North America. You wouldn't be able to train enough people. There wouldn't be the economics to support it. And so I personally am very optimistic that I'm very excited about how this is going to transform healthcare in a good way. We're going, as I think about it, me and Dr. Batjer in our careers, I did some rough numbers. We each probably have, I suspect he did about 10,000 surgeries in his career, somewhere in that ballpark, and that's probably what I'll wind up doing. That's a small village. But if you can train other people, if you can extend your abilities with AI and robotics, you can start to affect hundreds of thousands of patients. And as they say, if you want to be a millionaire, you have to change a million lives. If you want to be a billionaire, you have to change a billion lives. So you think about that in terms of impact in a spiritual sense. If you really want to change the world as a doctor, you've got to embrace these technologies. That's my view.
Geoff, maybe thinking about your technology as you prepare to go commercial, get it in the hands of more people, what's going to be needed to get it, into these underserved areas that Dr. Bendok and Dr. Batjer are referencing, both domestically in rural America and abroad in some of these underserved countries? Maybe say more about kind of the plan to get it there.
Yeah, so the plan is, we're engaging ourselves with the thought leaders, like Dr. Bendok and Batjer, but the thought leaders in Canada, the thought leaders in Germany, the thought leaders in Australia, because they're the ones who really understand the problem and the magnitude of that problem, but understand that the solutions have to be extremely innovative. And they're the ones that are going to push these technologies out into the field, and without their support, it isn't going to work. But they're going to be able to help make the argument, to help really promote those kind of things that people need. And ultimately, everybody deserves a chance. And where you live shouldn't dictate whether you're going to have a good outcome or not, right? And so the thought leaders that we've been speaking with, they understand that. And they really support what we're coming to market with. And that's what we need. We need the people to understand what the problem is, but those people who understand what the solution is, to take what we've got, what we're all working with here on the whole continuum of stroke and traumatic brain injury, and they push the solution for us. So we're engaging the thought leaders to really make it happen, globally.
Can I give an example of that? So 10 years ago, as we were trying to make decisions on which stroke patient to treat, you can use time as a measure, but you can also use brain perfusion, much like you do with the heart. You can get a stress test and see what part of the muscle is being supplied. And we've known for 20 years that if you have good quantitative perfusion data, blood flow data from a CAT scan, you can make good decisions and recognize what part of the brain is dead, irreversible, what part is just stunned by living on the margin. But to do that, you need your that 1 out of 20 radiologists was only available on between Monday and Wednesday between 10 and noon. So how do you get it 24/7? Stroke doesn't know time of day or night, so there are companies out there now, I won't, just so to avoid bias, you know who they are, who now, right to my smartphone, patient comes here with a stroke, and I can see their exact perfusion map. This is my son, actually, but you can see the perfusion map and make quantitative decisions. This patient will benefit, this patient will not benefit. No human being, you couldn't hire enough radiologists to cover 24/7 to be able to do that. And this is at Mayo Clinic, let alone your other hospitals out there who are more resource limited. And then forget about countries that are just developing and trying to feed their poor and take care of immunizations. So with this kind of technology now, and you bypass the human being completely. It goes from scan right to my phone. There's no human in between. Usually I get a call the next day saying, hey, did you see that scan? Yeah, patient's already out of the hospital. So, and so I think it's an exciting time to embrace new technology. And I think what you're doing is bringing it, I have it in the hospital now with these technologies, but you're bringing it to the ambulance. And so the future of healthcare is no longer the concrete building. It's the ambulance. It starts in the home. So there's the physical environment, and then there's the virtual hospital, which is worldwide, potentially. And that's where making this ambulance a smart ambulance, rather than just a flip phone ambulance, is really where it's going to go.
Coach Singletary, I want to come to you to kind of bring us home and in summation a little bit on this session. So we're talking about telerobotics, AI, telepresence in surgery and in care, talking about advanced diagnostics, and where we started was with the family member, the actual people affected by this technology and the people that you interact with and the communities that you think about. This is your second year joining us here at the event, and we're thrilled to have you and the community and the discipline that you represent. Can you maybe bring it home and tell us a little bit about how, in hearing all this innovation that we're talking about and these bold ideas from Drs. Bendok and Batjer and Geoff, how you think about that translating to the real world and what you leave with and carry back out as we wind down the event?
I think first and foremost, being here gives me such tremendous hope for our future. And I got back to my room last night, and even last night there was a lot of excitement, a lot of chatter, a lot of conversation. And I'm looking at this and thinking about this, and I get back to my room, and what does that remind me of, man? And this morning I thought, that's the locker room. It's the locker room. Football players, being a football player, you can't wait to get to the locker room because that's a safe place. I'm in a place where everybody that does what I do, that is a part of the same thing. You understand my world. You understand what I'm trying to do. And so twice I've been here, and there's such a buzz and there's such a excitement. And for me, I'm sitting back and talking to Dr. Batjer. I have no idea what he's talking about half the time. I'm just going, okay, oh, wow, that's amazing. But at the same time, when I'm leaving, I'm thinking, wow, I can't wait to get back and contact some of the connections that I have to figure out a way to try and make this happen, figure out a way to try and take this to the next level. But I'm just very encouraged, and I've always been intrigued by medicine because I played a game, and that game, made a lot of difference, those fans screaming and what have you. But what everybody here is doing, if you have any success at all, you're changing lives, you're saving lives. And to me, that makes all the difference in the world, and that makes it worth my time, makes it worth my while to be involved in what everybody here is doing. And my buddy here, Dr. Batjer, he's a piece of work, but making a tremendous difference one day at a time.
Thank you. And Dr. Batjer, we'll go to you to share any closing thoughts and bring us home.
Yeah, I think it's I think the thing that differentiates people that come to places like this from the rest of the folks in the world is something intangible. You know, we all are required to put bread on the table to feed our family. But the people that go into these fields have something else. There's some deeper force driving them. And it doesn't have there's no dollar value on it, nor are they there for a dollar for it. As Mike very nicely articulated, it's there because it's possible. And it is a way to truly make a contribution that will live on. And maybe I'm more sensitive to that at my advanced age of 72, but the idea that we are creating a momentum behind great minds that we're all experiencing at these sessions that could catch that infection and carry it on and impact a pyramidal number of people and humans worldwide.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us again for the second year of this conversation, and hopefully to many more, and to the innovators out there to want to get in touch and continue to work in this space and leave that lasting legacy that you guys talk about. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the event.